Make sure you wash your hands.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu salam rasulullah. I think we caught that live. Don't forget to wash your hands. Beautiful statement there from Rayesa, right off the bat. Coronavirus type of introduction. Don't forget to wash your hands. She's
Gotta be
talking to
done.
she was talking to her daughter, by the way, not you guys. Anyway, Bismillah, Alhamdulillah, Salatu Salam Rasulullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to our Friday interview live with Rayesa Gheewala today, and she is the divorced Muslimah coach. So she really helps sisters through that tough time of divorce, whether they're going through it or they've gone through divorce and they're trying to put their life back together. She and I have both been through that process, and it's not easy. And it's a really important job that she's doing. So, Rayesa, do you want to share first, before we get into our conversation, a bit about how you work with sisters and what you do with sisters, so they're familiar with your work?
Yeah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'd be happy to share. I think it's such a time of overwhelm and chaos sometimes that like there's this big frenzy going on, and so it really helped to help sisters just get clarity and get grounded in what direction they're going in and what they want for their life. You know, how do they want a divorce? Sometimes in the whole chaos, you don't even recognize that you get a choice in how you get to divorce. It's not you're not just reacting and thrashing about and see where it goes. You do have a choice, because we always have a choice, and it can feel really overwhelming alone on your own by yourself, because so many things change, internally, externally, with family, with friends, with everything. So I like to really be able to give that support to them, to let them know that they're okay, no matter how crazy and chaotic it gets, that they're okay, and they're going to be okay, and their kids are going to be okay, and there's a process through this, and I help them and support them through the process and the steps of thinking clearly and getting things in order in their mind and in their life, and then moving forward. That sometimes it looks like, how am I ever going to move forward from this? But you can, and you have a choice in how you do that, whether you're just going to let life push you through, or you're going to take charge and decide how you want to go through the divorce and what you want for yourself afterwards.
So just to be clear, you're not someone that's out there advocating divorce. You're actually here just helping people do it in a better way, right?
Absolutely, and that's a good point, because this hasn't been talked about for so long, and that's why there's so many taboo topics and stereotypes and all these myths around divorce, because we haven't talked about it for so long. But guess what? There's so many people going through it. So many people going through it, and no, there's no need to be suffering in silence. So that's why I'm there as a support for people, so then they can heal from the loss and the trauma that they've gone through and the hardship they've gone through, and have a new life, be part of your community, be part of your society, be part of the ummah as a whole healthy person that you are, and contribute to society as you once were, or in a different, meaningful way.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. So you mentioned that it's a sort of a taboo topic, so we're talking about it. What would you like to share with sisters out there who really feel that it's hopeless, that they really didn't? I mean, most of us don't go into marriage expecting that we're going to go through divorce. So most of us have a very difficult time coming to terms with the fact that what we had hoped was not going to happen, that this is the reality that we're faced with. And it can feel quite hopeless, and like you have no say or control, as you said. What would you like to share with sisters that feel that way right now?
Yeah. it can feel really dark. It can feel really hopeless. And even if someone tries to tell you there is light at the end of the tunnel, there is hope. Sometimes you can't see it, and that's why we need that support to help someone walk you through, hey, look, it's going to be okay, you know? And it's not the end of the world, even if it feels like the end of the world. It never is. I like to say it never is until the world actually ends, you know? But inside it feels like that. And we kind of, you know, lose balance and get so overwhelmed thinking, how am I going to move forward? How am I going to move on? And so there's when you think about it, it's when you recognize that it's not the end of the world, even if it just means taking baby steps, that it's possible to do that. And, you know, we weren't created and sent on this earth just to get married. You know, and marriage really is all about a means, one of the means to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to worship Him. And there's many ways to do that. And so we have to get centered and focused. What is our purpose? Why are we here? And get back on track with that. Because when we lose sight of that, we lose track of that, then it's like, oh, wait a minute, like everything is off center. So when we kind of focus and get back on center. What is my purpose? Why am I here? What am I doing? You know, and whether that means, you know, being in a marriage later on, that could be a means. But how about just living your life in a manner that's pleasing to Allah, starting with that, and then, you know, putting other things back into your life. And so that's why there is always hope, because it's not the end of the world. And we were here for a particular reason, which is to worship Allah. And there's many different ways to do that.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. You can lose sight of that when everything's quite emotional. And one of the misconceptions I think I went through, that I think I find a lot of sisters go through also, is when we get married, we pray istikhara, and it seems like, you know, you were guided and that this was the right thing to do, but then it doesn't work out. And then you start doubting yourself and your judgment and your decision making because you think that somehow you got it wrong. And you know, what we've come to understand with what we've learned through the Inside Out paradigm is, firstly, that's just thoughts that are coming up in a story that we're creating that is creating us extra stress, but that in fact everything happens according to the qadr of Allah, and it was the qadr of Allah to get married. It was also the qadr of Allah that that marriage wasn't going to succeed for whatever reason. And sometimes it's hard to get your head around, well, how can bad things be the qadr of Allah? But in reality, it's some of these toughest tests that we go through that really build our character, really the times when things shift for us and we become much better people as a result of it. Do you want to share anything about your story that I guess gives some hope or light on that topic?
Oh, yeah. I was just thinking about that while you were just talking about how to come to acceptance. A lot of sisters feel stuck in like being able to accept that, oh, my marriage didn't survive. It didn't succeed. Like it wasn't successful. And all these, like you said, doubts and a lack of being able to trust yourself and believing that you're a failure because your marriage didn't succeed. It's all part of that process. Those are all normal thoughts that creep up, you know, in our communities. But I think back to my own, I was the same way. I was completely devastated, like in shock that I can't believe this is happening, because nobody goes into a marriage thinking that this could happen one day, you know? But alhamdulillah, I feel like that was the best thing that could have happened to me. And I say that my marriage was the best thing that happened to me when it did. And so was my divorce, you know, at that time. So I can see that, like how it was perfect for me during the time when I got married and the time I got divorced. It was exactly what I needed when I needed it, because going back to that focus of why we're here, I was drifting on a path that was not right for me, and I wouldn't have realized it had I not been taken out of an environment or taken out of a situation that was not allowing me to see clearly. And so, when I look at the bigger picture, yes, it was difficult. Yes, it was devastating. Yes, it was hard. But through that process, I would have never been able to realize who I even had potential to be, because that wasn't even a possibility or a dream that, I call my divorce the impetus to my spiritual and emotional rebirth.
I think that's probably turning things upside down for most people.
Yeah. Because things that, that I struggled with in terms of, and I also say that I was in a space or a place of such codependency that I would call it bordering on shirk. And I didn't even realize that. I didn't even recognize that. So many things that were not right that I didn't recognize, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through this divorce helped me to see, helped me to realize. And the best thing is that I became this person that has so much tawakkul and so much conviction and so much my relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has completely shifted and changed, that it doesn't matter what it took to get there. Because if the end result is that you are a person that is living a life that's pleasing to Allah, and you have a elevated level of taqwa that you didn't even know was possible to have, and you have an elevated level of tawakkul that you didn't even know existed for yourself, then what a gift, really. What a gift. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day what you had to go through to get there.
Yeah, that's this is where, when you're in the middle of it, it's hard to see the silver linings, or hard to see how this is going to transpire into something perhaps where you're better off or a better person, and it's very hard also to see it for a long while afterwards, because there can be family courts and all sorts of other things going on. Co-parenting can be incredibly challenging. We've both got lovely stories about that. But the reality is, at the end of the day, we are all okay. And that Allah's never going to burden us with more than we can bear. That this was one of the tests that He chose for us. And it's His wisdom as to what is the right test for us. So some people go through different tests. They don't go through divorce. They'll have other things that test them. Maybe staying married is their test. Allahu alim. So it sort of leads me to how much judgment there is around it. Like, when I was first a Muslim, was very passionate about learning about Islam, and you kind of learn things through a fresh eye. And my fresh eye saw the story where the Prophet ﷺ married his adopted son to Zainab, and they didn't get along. He sent them off to try again, and then they still didn't get along, and in the end he allowed them to divorce. And this was a match that the Prophet ﷺ had made, right? And it was his adopted son, and not quite sure how Zainab was related in the picture, but he ended up marrying Zainab. So if a woman who's been divorced is not somebody to go near, which is often the way we're treated in the Ummah, unfortunately, then why did the Prophet ﷺ show us the example of marrying someone that firstly, he'd set up the marriage, he then willingly allowed that marriage to be, to go through divorce because he could see it wasn't working. They'd come and asked for him, and then he married her. What an example. And then my experience in the community is quite different. A lot of, you need to be more patient. You need to bring the family back together. You need to keep the family together. Why do we need to keep the family together if it's totally imploding? When everybody is unhappy and the kids are being harmed, it's not healthy. So it sort of brings us, back to this whole D word thing that we're talking about here, that it's become like the D word, the divorce word. Do you have anything you want to share about your experience in terms of how it was looked at when you went through divorce, and even now, because you're still single, how do people view you as a single mom?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think there's still things are shifting a little bit, but there's still so much shame. There's a lot of like pointing fingers or blame, and there's it's kind of like ostracization or not being accepted. And I think the bigger thing here is that we see the example of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and the Sunnah, and we see also in the Quran how there's a whole chapter on divorce, and it's a completely halal thing to do, and so much so that we have instructions on how to do it. Not if, but when it happens, we're given instructions on how to do it, how Allah wants us to do it. And I was just, I was listening to something the other day talking about how in our Sunnah, our tradition, actually in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the husband to give a parting gift when you divorce. So I think we've kind of, just gone off the path of what does divorce look like? What does it mean? And we have all these ideas that it means something dirty or ugly or taboo, where it's like stay away, keep away, and it's really, really, really difficult. I think whether you are initiating it, or whether it's mutual, or whether it's not something that you wanted and your husband is initiating it, it's still so difficult for each person that's going through it. And because of all these taboos that are floating around in our society around it, it's become a nasty, dirty word, and it makes people feel left out, not accepted. And not just them, and their children too, if they have children, and so there becomes like a stigma, or like a D letter, like a scarlet letter that you wear, and there's still a lot of that going on. But what I have found is that because I got help all throughout the end of my marriage and up until now, like working with coaches and people who are supporting me, I didn't end up paying so much attention to what was going on the outside. Mm-hmm. And it made a huge difference in how I responded and how I carried myself and how people viewed me. So because I wasn't focusing on how people were viewing me, I was focusing on how I viewed myself, and how I was experiencing the divorce because of what was going on inside. It affected how people started interacting with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if this is completely a sidestep in the topic, but it's the same kind of thing. When I wore my hijab confidently, I didn't notice the people's stares, nor did I care about them. It didn't matter, and so it's a similar kind of thing. It just becomes, it doesn't matter what they think. I'm doing what I'm doing for the sake of Allah, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, absolutely. And, subhanAllah, one of the things that I learned through this, which is a blessing in itself, the whole divorce experience, is that I learned, that hadith that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves his servant, as he draws closer and nearer to his servant, I'm totally paraphrasing, that, when the servant does not only the obligatory things but the voluntary acts of worship, he gets closer to his servant. And then when Allah loves his servant, he calls Angel Jibreel and he tells him, I love so and so. And then Angel Jibreel goes to the people in the heavens and say, Allah loves so and so, so you should love them. And then they start loving this person. And then the angels from the heavens, they go to the angels that are in the world and say, we love this person, you should love this person. And that instills love and affection in the hearts of the people on this earth towards that person. And I love that, just because I found, because I was able to get the help and support with coaches and people who could help me through this to see the hope, I was able to show up in that way, because that's what I focused on. I focused on pleasing Allah and living my life in a manner pleasing to Allah, and not just not just reacting, through the fears, which are so real in the divorce, the fears and the sadness and the loss and the grief that we're feeling, and not just reacting and feeling justified in my behavior. Since I was able to do what was pleasing to Allah and focus on that, I really felt like I didn't have to worry about what people were doing or thinking or saying about me. And I really felt the love of people and the care and the concern. And I really, truly believe it's because I focused on my relationship with Allah, and I focused on my behavior and my actions. It's not easy, for sure. It's not easy. When you're feeling angry or frustrated or hurt, it's hard to show up as your best self, hurt people, right? And just react and do things that we don't mean or we feel bad about or regret later on. That's not easy, but it's worth it, because it's so much more easier going through life focusing on yourself and doing what's right, rather than worrying about what everybody else is doing or thinking or saying.
Well, it fits beautifully. There's the verse in the Quran, and again, I'm also paraphrasing here, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if you focus on Allah, if you focus on the people, or maybe it's a hadith, anyway, it's from our teachings. If you focus on the people, you will end up displeasing Allah, but if you focus on pleasing Allah, the people will be pleased. I can't remember. Yeah, I've just had it's a hadith, is it? Yeah. When I started to say it, I thought, no, hang on, this doesn't sound like Quran, this sounds more like hadith, but anyway. Yeah. So you've mentioned a lot through our discussion about all the support that you had. And so I can understand why you've gone into the work that you've gone into. You're just passionate about giving that support to others. And so one of the ways you do that is through some free masterclasses and things that you run. And we've got a link on the screen for anyone who's watching called bit.ly/the D word with a dash in there. You should see the link on the screen to a masterclass that Rayesa is running. When are you running the masterclass?
It's coming up at the end of the month, right after Ramadan is over, on May 28th.
Okay, so do you want to tell them a little bit about what you're going to be covering in the masterclass?
Yeah, I'd love to. And yeah, that is exactly why I went into this work, because it's not what I was trained for. I'm actually trained as a pharmacist, and I started to leave that and focus on, this is where my mission is, where I'm meant to be, in helping other sisters go through this and reinvent themselves. So the masterclass that's coming up is called the D word. Why is divorce such a dirty word? And this class is really to help us see and acknowledge all of the nastiness that goes on out there, the ugliness that's felt when you're going through divorce, regardless of who initiates it. And so it's really just to help the sisters, acknowledge that I hear you, I hear your pain, and I hear what you're going through in terms of the shame and the blaming and the stigma and all of the stereotypes out there that really are keeping people stuck. Because I have so many sisters that I'm supporting that come to me that even if they're initiating it, there's so much guilt. there's so much guilt that eats you up inside, that, you know, causes a lot of turbulence within. So it's an opportunity to connect, to let's break down all of the taboos, let's break down all the stereotypes, let's come talk about what you're feeling, what you're experiencing, and let's break it down and unpack it and talk about what is going on, how did it get like this, and what can we do?
Yeah, and that's the key thing, isn't it? That the whole point of the masterclass is to show them that there's actually hope and there's actually a way forward.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the key thing, is that when you don't feel hopeful and you can't see that there's a way forward, it can get really hopeless, very dark, very depressing. And so this masterclass is like that first step out of that darkness into seeing that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and there is a pathway to that light at the end of the tunnel if they choose to take it, inshallah. So I think it's very important. If we don't have hope, we don't try, we don't move forward, we stay stuck where we are. So anyone who is either contemplating divorce or in the middle of it or the other side of it, but still in the thick of it all, and not feeling like life is moving forward, this is the great place to start, to have this hope, to see that people do get that what you went through was real, that you weren't just imagining it, that people do misunderstand, misjudge. So a safe place, really, to come and be.
Yeah. If nothing else, there's going to be a master class. I'll be sharing some stuff and teaching, but it's really just a safe space to just come and share your experience, to know that, you know, there is a space for you, and there's nothing to hide or to be ashamed of, and that it's a safe space for you.
So it's bit.ly/the-d-word.
Yes.
If you're just listening and not watching, take a look at the screen so you can take a snapshot. We can actually put in let me just type it into the comments so that anyone can click on the link instead of having to try and type it. Let me do the typing for you. D word. I'm talking and typing and I didn't make a typo. I'm so proud of myself.
It's a tongue twister.
It hasn't. So that should be in the comments now. Hopefully, look. I can't press the link from here. I was going to press it and just double check that it works. If it doesn't work, you just need to let me know and tell me that I didn't manage to type and talk at the same time and get it right. So you've done very well, because I know you've got a little one there that's been vying for your attention, and it's really, I know how hard it is to stay focused on what you're saying when you've got somebody doing hands in the screen and everything. Interestingly, most of the time people couldn't see her hands popping in there. I could see it because I have your whole screen here. And so they're probably not realizing you're getting distracted by someone on the sides.
I'm used to it, though, you know, I think we've learned to just, do our thing, and they know that we're doing our thing, but they still have to do their thing.
Yes. And yes, that's just part of working from home, isn't it? Alhamdulillah. So have you got one parting thing that you would like to say to the sisters, apart from join your masterclass?
Yes, I definitely I'm looking forward to seeing you there and connecting with you, and just, you know, sharing your journey and experience and letting you know that you are okay, that you will be okay. This is not the end of the world, even if it feels like the end of the world. And there's always hope, and there's light at the end of the tunnel, even if that just means, you know, one step at a time, you know, one breath at a time, one moment at a time, that you will get through this and have better days ahead.
And I think, alhamdulillah, the thing that they can feel confident in is that you're here to encourage them through this process in the best way that's pleasing to Allah, that you're not going to encourage anyone to do anything that displeases Allah, because I think that that's always a concern, and it can be a concern of not necessarily the person that's seeking your help, but the other people around them, that you're going to influence them badly or something. It's nothing like that at all. It's all about helping you be emotionally and spiritually strong through a very difficult test. And that's what it's about.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, we have a lot of clients that people I work with that they, are the ones who have initiated or not. But it takes, to get to that space of clarity with conviction that I know what I'm doing is the right thing to do, and I know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not displeased with me. It takes some time to work through and process. And it's not just about, okay, well, I'm so upset or I'm so fed up, and this is just what I want to do. No, it's like you said, it's about making a decision from that space of clarity and wisdom and, being emotionally and spiritually sound.
Yeah. And that's where we have access to our best wisdom, because it's through Allah's guidance that we have that. So, yeah. So I think it's very important, because on the Day of Judgment, we're going to be accountable how we navigate the tests that Allah sends us. And so this is about helping them navigate that the best way they possibly can, inshallah.
So the one thing I always say about divorce is that it's not the issue whether you're divorcing or not. It's how you're divorcing.
But that's the same with everything, isn't it?
That's the way it is.
Yeah. Well, it's been absolutely brilliant having this conversation. I think we need more conversations like this, where we're dusting the cobwebs off a lot of the myths and bringing things out from under the carpet, because it's a form of oppression when something that the religion allows us to do, as long as we do it in the appropriate way, that society then turns it into something so negative and makes it really difficult for the people to actually do it in a way that is pleasing to Allah. So important work that you're doing. Jazakallah khair, Rayesa, for stepping into this controversial area, but a very important area. And I really do recommend that you attend her masterclass, and at least, see for yourself that there's actually hope, and start taking those steps towards that light that's at the end of the tunnel, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair for having me here, and being open to have this conversation.
Yeah, of course. Always open to the tricky conversations, alhamdulillah. My favourites. All right, well, I better let you go and get ready for your iftar. It's getting time for breaking fast that end, and I'll get on with my day here, because I'm a day ahead of you. Alhamdulillah. Yeah. Great to have you here. Subhanaka Allahumma bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.